Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam pangam nangyate girem yakrapatamaham vande Sri Gurudinata Anandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna. Thank you once again for joining. So we'll resume our discussion on the Rudra Gita. And the general structure of the prayers is that it's divided into 4 parts. The first part is Lord Shiva praying for getting the qualifications to pray. And this is Bhuta Shuddhi, that before the person is qualified to approach the Lord in any way, the person purifies the gross and the subtle senses. And Lord Shiva does that by praying to the predominating deities of these senses. Then, after having been purified, the Lord Shiva, he then glorifies the form of the Supreme Lord, and strongly, exclusively focusing on the personal form of the Lord. Then Lord Shiva, he glorifies the process by which one becomes qualified to approach the Lord. Essentially, it's a glorification of the process of bhakti. And concludes the prayer by talking about the relationship between the Lord and the material creation. So the final part of the prayer, the final 11 verses are Phalashruti, which is Lord Shiva glorifies the person who recites this prayer, talks about the origin of the prayer, where did this prayer originate from, and what is the benefit that one gets. So we are currently in the first section of the prayer, where the Lord is praying to the various deities in order to become qualified to render the prayers. So he had prayed to the Chaturvyuha deities, Sankarshan, Anirudh, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, for the purification of the 4 elements of the Antakarana. So Antakarana, as we know, is Manas Buddhi Ahankar, mind, intelligence, false ego, and Chitta, which is consciousness. And they are respectively the so Manas Buddhi Ahankar is mind, intelligence, false ego, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance, and Chitta, which is Shuddha Sattva, presided by Vasudeva. So he's rendering prayers to them, and we are now at verse 37. So we will talk about his continuing prayers to the Chaturvyuha. Verse 37. Swarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Shade Namaha. Namo Hiranya Viraya Chaturhotraya Tantave. My Lord, O Anirudh, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold. And thus, in the form of fire, you have the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with the Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. So the first half of the verse is glorification of the sun god. So even though Srila Prabhupada says, my Lord, O Anirudh, but Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that Anirudh, that the sun god is glorified as an expansion of Aniruddha. So there's no difference in considering that ultimately Lord Shiva is addressing the prayers to he who empowers the sun god. So Prabhupada in that mood, he considers the prayer to be addressed to Anirudh, and Vishwanath Chakravarti considers it to be sun god, and is glorified as Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya. So Swarga is heaven and Apavarga is liberation. Dwara is door. So one who is the door to the heavenly planets and to liberation. The second half of the verse is prayers to Agni Dev, who is the deity of voice and accomplishes the actions of the four priests of the Chaturhotra. So Hiranya Viryaya, semen like gold, refers to Agni Dev, which accomplishes the actions of Chaturhotra, because the oblations are offered in Agni Dev by the four priests. So Lord Shiva, considering that Agni Dev is the deity of sound, he prays, O Agni, just as you stimulate other actions, engage my words in the chanting of the glories of the Lord. May my strength, not different from fire, be purified. So Vishwanath Chakravarti paraphrases these prayers and gives them in a more relatable way. So he says, this is what the prayer is, that by the influence of Agni, all kind of actions are stimulated. When the fire of digestion is working, then the person generates energy by which the body moves. Similarly, by the influence of fire, wind is generated. By the influence of fire, which is at this point being used synonymously as energy, everything that is energetic is stimulated. But here Lord Shiva is saying, just please engage my voice, my words, in chanting the glories of the Lord, and may my strength, not different from fire, be purified. So as you know, that Agni is considered as the ultimate purifier. Whether you put anything pious or impious, clean or dirty, the Agni consumes everything and takes them to the same destination. So similarly, Lord Shiva is saying that just like you purify everything, then may my strength also be purified. It's not contaminated by any of the modes. Okay, so let's go on to the next verse, 38. Nama Uja Ishetravya Potyeya Gyaretase Triptidaya Cha Jivana Namah Sarva Rasatmane. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitralokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. So, interestingly, Lord Shiva is praying to the offerings. So, to the offerings that go to the Pitras, they're known as Puja. And the offerings that go to the Devas, known as Isha. And he's praying to Yagyaretase. Yagyaretase is Soma. He's praying to moon. So the moon is actually the root of enabling the offerings to the Pitras and the Devas. So Lord Shiva is praying to the moon in the position of the provider of the Pitras and the Devas. So since it is said that the moon provides for them, and the humans are indebted to them. So through the moon, the humans are able to provide for the offerings for the Pitras and the Devas. So this is essentially Lord Shiva is describing a relationship of debt. That because the Jivas are indebted to the Pitras, they offer the Pindas. Because they are indebted to the Devas for all the care they take for the universe, they perform the Yagya. So Lord Shiva is praying to the moon that since you're the source for them, you're the one who can free me from the debt of these obligations. Now, all these prayers, they are directed to demigods, but they are completely in the mood of bhakti. So one should not get confused that these are prayers that come under the category of Deva Puja or Upasana. They're essentially, Lord Shiva is essentially praying to the Devas to engage his senses in the service of the Supreme Lord. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that previously Lord Shiva had already prayed to Aniruddha as the Upasya deity. Upasya means the worshipable deity. So Aniruddha is the original deity of the mind. So he had already prayed to Aniruddha. But considering that the mind is very difficult to control, Lord Shiva is once again purifying the mind by offering respects to moon, which is the presiding deity of the mind. So, as per Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the prayer is, O Moon Deva, purify me of the debts to the Devas and the sages, and engage my mind in bhakti. Purify my energy, which is non-different from you. So I'll send you summary of these prayers, so you don't have to note it down what these prayers are. As and then to bring Krishna Prabhu in a table. So Prabhupada in the purport writes that Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he can become free from the obligation of the Pitas, demigods, general living entities, and saintly persons, and completely engaged himself in the devotional service of the Lord. And Prabhupada quotes the famous verse in 11th canto, Deva Rishi Bhuta Pananam Pitranam. That one who engages in bhakti is automatically liberated from all kinds of debts, including that to the devas, to the ancestors, to other living entities, etc. So for a little bit further understanding on this prayer to Moon, that after purifying the energy in the form of sun, moon, and fire by offering respects to them, Lord Shiva is offering respects to the moon as the form of taste, to purify the taste and the tongue. So he's saying, O moon, O Deva of taste, make my tongue taste the sweetness of things related to you. Purify my daily water. I offer respects to you. So this is another mood of the same prayer. He was praying to the moon to relieve him of the debts. He's also praying to the moon because through the moon, the vegetation acquires taste. Moon is the presiding deity of the plants, the saps through which the tastes are there. So he's saying that purify the taste of food through the tongue. So Prabhupada says that Soma, the predominating deity of the moon, is responsible for the living entity's ability to relish the taste of food through the tongue. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him the strength so that he will not taste anything but prasad of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada uses it interchangeably, Soma and Aniruddha. So he begins with Soma and then he talks about Aniruddha deliberately to show that the prayer being addressed to Soma is also being addressed to Aniruddha. Later on, Prabhupada says, Lord Shiva's prayer to Lord Aniruddha is meant for Tripti Daya. For this purpose, he prays to the Lord Aniruddha to help him be satisfied by eating only prasad offered to the Lord. Okay, so this was verse 38. The praise to the Devas will continue till verse 43. So let's continue to verse 39. Sarvasattva dehaya visheshaya sthaviyase namastrailokya palaya saha ojo balaya cha. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So here Lord Shiva is offering obeisances to the embodiment of earth and air. So the deity of the embodiment of earth is the universal form of the Lord. So the universal form of the Lord has two aspects of existence. One is the Virat Roop, which is the gross material form, and the second is the Hiranyagarbha, which is the sum total of all the jivas. Right? We studied this in the third canto, in the description of the universal form. So Lord Shiva prays that stimulate my nose to smell the fragrance of the Lord, engage my body and everyone's body, all the senses in the Lord's service. So this is his prayer to the embodiment of earth. Quality of earth is fragrance. Then to Vayu. So Vayu carries the fragrance from one point to other. And Vayu is also described as Trailokya Palaya. So the protector of the three worlds. And also one who protects the mind, the body, and the senses. So Lord Shiva prays that enter the mind, body, and senses, mind, senses, and body as Saha, Ojas, and Bala, and make them suitable for worshipping. Stimulate my touch to feel the softness of the Lord's body. Make my mind and senses suitable for worshipping the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva is offering his obeisances to the universal body, which includes all other bodies, so that everyone's body may fully engage in devotional service. Since this individual body is composed of senses, all the senses should be engaged in devotional service. For instance, the smelling instrument, the nose, can be engaged in smelling the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. The hands can engage in cleansing the temple of the Lord, etc. So again, one may wonder that why is Lord Shiva offering obeisances to the devas or the presiding deities rather than worshipping the Lord? And then Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport that this is because one can only approach the Lord with the sanction of the Lord. So the devas are being mentioned in the context of their service to the Lord, by which one can render service to the Lord. So the example that is given here is that supposing there is a husband and a wife, and the husband mistreats the wife. He cheats on her, abuses her, does not give her money, and then finally he abandons her, leaves her, and goes away. And then later on, he tries to reconcile. So he changes his ways, he becomes properly situated, he offers her gifts, he offers her sweet words. But she will only let him in the house when she opens the door for him by herself. So all the other things that he does can qualify him to come to the door of the house. But she has to open the door to let him in, because she was the one that has been wronged. So similarly, when the jivas, when they turn their back to Krishna, and they say so many bad things about Krishna, they act in a way that is so hurtful to Krishna, they leave his house. And then later on, when some of the jivas, they mend their ways, they follow the principles of bhakti, but yet they cannot get back into the association of the Lord until the Lord agrees to do it, because he is the one who is wronged. Until the party that has been wronged agrees, there cannot be any reconciliation. So Lord Shiva is not being presumptive. He's not saying that now I'm qualified to enter into your association in the spiritual kingdom. But what he is doing is that he's making himself qualified to receive the possible mercy of the Lord. He's taking help from the expansions of the Lord. He's taking helps from the devotees of the Lord. He's taking help from the demigods. So all this is so that he becomes qualified to approach the Lord. And he will approach the Lord, but he will never demand entry. So that's the mood of an exalted devotee. Prabhupada writes that being the life air of every living entity, the Lord is the maintainer of the three worlds. Consequently, he can induce every living entity to engage in his real duty with his bodily strength and mental strength. Thus, every living entity should serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his pran, life, artha, wealth, intelligence, and words. As stated in the Bhagavatam 10.22.35, even though one may desire to engage in the service of the Lord, without sanction, one cannot do so. Lord Shiva is offering his prayers in so many different ways in order to show living entities how to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Okay. Verse 40. Arthalingaya nabhase namontar bahiratmane namaha punyaya lokaya amushmai bhurivarchase. My dear Lord, by expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You are the all-pervading sky within and without. And you are the ultimate goal of pious activities executed both within this material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. So here Lord Shiva is praying to Nabha. Nabha is ether or sky, and the deity of sound. So sound is glorified for three things: that it reveals the actual meaning of everything, it supports everything internally and externally, and the ultimate goal of pious acts in this world and beyond. So Lord Shiva is praying that make my ears hear about the beauty of the Lord, reveal the meaning of the name, mantra, and bhakti scriptures. Is chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada has a longish purport, and one that is very, very informative. I'm going to summarize it for you, and it's one that should be read in a lot of details, a lot of attention several times. So Prabhupada says that the meaning of everything is received through the air by sound vibration. The vibration may be material or spiritual, but without sound vibration, no one can understand the meaning of anything. Shabda Brahman. So this is essentially the Vedas, right? The Vedas are the Shabda Brahman, and then Prabhupada says that the real essence of the Shabda Brahma, and the real essence of Shabda Brahma is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. By vibrating this transcendental sound, the meaning of everything, both material and spiritual, is revealed. So Prabhupada takes a little bit of a detour over here, because Lord Shiva at one level, he's glorifying sound for its ability to reveal things, for its ability to connect to the Lord. What Srila Prabhupada takes the specific path is the sound in the terms of the Vedic sound, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So how is it possible that sound reveals everything, material and spiritual? Prabhupada explains that in the Vedas it is said that Antarbahishcha tat sarvam Vyapanarayana Sthita. That Narayan is all pervading and he exists both within and without. So, in other words, if one understands the soul and the super soul, one understands everything. Because there are only two things, inside and outside. Inside is the soul, outside is the all-pervading super soul. Super soul is also inside, but also the soul is inside. So when the limited consciousness of the living entity is pervading the entire material body as the soul, and the unlimited consciousness of the Lord is pervading the entire universe. So if one were to understand the soul and the super soul, then transitively one will understand the Antarbahishcha Tat Sarva. Right? So simply speaking, that the previous verse Prabhupada said Narayan is all pervading. By understanding the Lord, one automatically understands everything. So Lord Shiva is praying to the personality of Godhead to be kind to us, so that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we can understand everything in both the material and spiritual world, within and without, about the soul and the super soul. So essentially what Srila Prabhupada says that, yes, the Vedas are the one that reveal Antarbahishya Tat Sarvam, but the essence of the Vedas is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So it serves the same purpose as the Vedas. Because the Vedas reveal Narayana. Narayana is all-pervading. The Vedas reveal the Jiva. The Jiva is pervading within the body. By understanding Jiva and the Lord, one understands everything within and without. So everything is revealed. And then Prabhupada said that the word Amushmai is significant in this regard because it indicates that the best target one can aim for is attaining the spiritual world. So even after attaining the higher planetary systems. Okay, we'll do a couple of more verses that will get us to the end of the first part of the prayer, and then we can take a break for discussions. Ravrataya nivrittaya pitradevaya karmane namo dharma vipakaya mrityeva dukkadaya cha. My dear Lord, you are the viewer of the results of pious activities. Your inclination, disinclination, and their resultant activities. You are the cause of the miserable conditions of life caused by irreligion, and therefore you are death. I offer my respectful obeisances. So we'll see that in 2 verses, Lord Shiva is praying directly to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is praying as one who gives 4 kinds of results. So he says, Pravrataya Nivrittaya. Pravriti Nivritti, do's and do's. This is the Lord as the instigator of the dharmas. Then he says, Pitradevaya Karmagi. He gives the results of worshipping the Pitras and the Devas. Then Adharma Vipakaya. He also gives the results of one who does irreligious acts. And Mrityave Dukhadaya. He is also the giver of Mrityu, death, and Dukha, miseries. So these prayers convey that every existence, every aspect of one's existence is controlled by the Lord. So one may think that those who are disinclined to Krishna become independent of Krishna. So here it is shown that even they are being controlled by Krishna. So with the exception of the free will of the jivas, Krishna controls everything, whether it is dharmic or adharmic, whether it is direct or indirect. So this verse is worshipping Krishna as the Paramatma. As the Paramatma, the Lord internally motivates the jiva based on the desires of the jiva. So that's why he is the instigator of dharma. And he also gives the results of the activities based on the previous activities, whether they are religious or irreligious. He either gives death and miseries, or Pitradevaya Karmake, or he gives the pious results. Prabhupada quotes the famous verse from Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya Nidhisana Vishwa, Mataspriti Jnanam Apovanam Sadati, that I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And then in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 21-22, Prabhupada quotes, Krishna says that I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtain his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So it is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead who causes forgetfulness, who causes the asuras to forget him. And it is him only who reminds the devotees that they need to remember him. But he does this based on the intrinsic desires of the living entity. Does this out of envy or partiality or whimsical, based on what the jivas actually want. Here Prabhupada says that in this verse, the verse Dukhadaya is very significant. For those who are non-devotees are perpetually put into the cycle of birth and death. It's a very miserable condition. Because one's position in life is attained according to one's activities, the asuras or non-devotees are put into such miserable conditions. Okay. Moving on to the next verse. Prabhupada is a very, very insightful purport for this one. Namasta Shisham Misha Manave Karanatmane Namo Dharmaya Brahate Krishnaya kuntamedase Purushaya Puranaya Sankhya Yogeshwaraya cha. My dear Lord, you are the topmost of all bestowers of benediction, the oldest and supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. You are the master of all the world's metaphysical philosophy, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you. So this is the second verse where Lord Shiva is praying now directly to the personality of Godhead, and is praying as the giver of the results of prescribed activities. So in this verse, Lord Shiva is directly addressing Krishna. Right? So he says, Krishnaya Kunta Medhasi. He directly addressing Krishna as Dharma personified. So Lord Shiva, in addition to Krishna as Dharma personified, he's offering obeisances to the Lord in the form of Bhakti, as its Vishaya, as the object of Bhakti. And he's also praying to the Lord as the establisher of Sankhya Yoga in the form of Kapila and Dattatreya. So Prabhupada has an extensive purport on this, and I'm going to highlight the main points. So Prabhupada says that Lord Krishna is also addressed herein as Ashisham Isha. So saintly personalities, they are able to offer benedictions, right? We see sages and devas, but they are only able to do so because they are empowered by Krishna. So Lord Shiva is glorifying Krishna as Ashisham Isha, as the one who is giving benedictions to all those who are giving benedictions. Then Lord Shiva says Manave. Manave is the supreme Manu. So the supreme Manu is considered to be the very first Manu. The first day, in the first Kalpa in the life of Brahma, which is essentially Swambhavu Manu, who is then considered to be an empowered incarnation of Krishna. So all the Manus in the 8th canto, it is explained that all the Manus are actually, they're called Manvantara avatars. They're all empowered incarnations of Krishna. So it said that every Manvantara is maintained by 6 expansions of Krishna. The first is the Manu, the second is the sons of the Manu, the third is the Saptarishis, fourth is Indra, fifth is the demigods, and the sixth is the Lord himself as the Manvantara avatar. Now they are not all at the same level, because other than the Manvantara avatar, the others are all jivas, but still considered as expansion because they are empowered by the Lord. And of course, in some cases, Indra is the personality of Godhead when there's no qualified Indra, and same thing for Manu or the Saptarishis. So this is one understanding of Manave. Then Prabhupada says in another sense, Manave also refers to the perfection of all kinds of mantras. So what is a mantra? That which delivers the conditioned soul, trayate. Literally, it means manatrayate, that it delivers the mind. Mana, when the mind is delivered, the deliverance of the jiva follows. So essentially, it's deliverance of the jiva. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, links whenever there is a word mantra, he will bring in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he says the mantra delivers the conditioned soul from his bondage. So simply by chanting the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, one can gain deliverance from any condition. Then what else is the prayers to? The prayers go to Karanatmane. So Karanatmane means the cause. So everything has a cause, and the Lord is glorified as the ultimate cause. Sarva Karana. So Prabhupada here writes that by establishing the fact that everything has a cause, the theory of chance is repudiated in this verse. So the scientists believe that because of random interactions, by chance, the protein, first the carbons and hydrogens combined and formed the building block. Then by chance they combined and began to form complex carbohydrates, and by chance they combined and formed proteins, which by chance combined and formed RNA, which by chance combined and formed DNA, which by chance combined and formed the basic things, unicellular organisms, which by chance got consciousness, which by chance evolved. So the whole scientific theory of existence is based on a series of chances. And Prabhupada says that by considering that the Lord is the cause of everything, then this risky and shaky premise that so many chances are lining up to get us where we are, and by chance we will get to where we are going, is repudiated. And then there's, of course, the famous verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Nadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana, Karanam. And the Vedanta Sutra, Prabhupada quotes 1.1.2, then Mahadiyasyata, that the absolute truth is the supreme cause of all emanations. Then, how else is Lord Shiva glorifying the Lord? He says, Dharmaya Brahate. So, since Krishna is the original propounder of all kinds of religious principles, he is called Dharmaya Brahate. Right? So we can see how this is such a liberal view. It's not a parochial view, not a very constrained view that different religions are different gods or they are not bona fide religions. But Prabhupada is including, he's saying it's from Krishna that the different religions have come and the different religious principles have come. So Yamraj says in the sixth canto of the Bhagavatam, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. That a practice can only be considered to be dharma if it is actually been given by the Lord. And if you look at it conversely, anything that is being practiced as a bona fide religion has to be coming from Krishna. Then, Lord Shiva is describing Krishna with many, many deep adjectives. So here, then he describes Krishna as Akuntha Medhase. that he has unlimited brain capacity. So Prabhupada has an interesting proposition. So he says that the result of limited brain capacity is the theory of uncertainty. So it is linking back to the theory of chance, the theory of trial and error, the probabilistic theory. So one with the limited brain capacity, right? Because if you look at it from a practical perspective, if somebody comes and asks you that explain this, and you say this is the cause of it, explain this is the cause of it, at some point your mind will stop working. So what will you say? That I don't have an answer to it. It probably came by chance. It's just the result of some uncertain probabilistic combination. But when a person has an unlimited brain capacity, akunta medase, then the person can explain it all the way from the ultimate origin, which is what Krishna does in the scriptures. And also because Krishna is akunta medase, and unlimited brain capacity means no uncertainty, which means that everything about him is definitive. That Krishna's words are absolute, Krishna's activities are absolute, his form is absolute, and there is no uncertainty around him. So to give an example of Krishna's unlimited brain capacity, Srila Prabhupada quotes 4.24.x, where he said Krishna knows everyone and everything. And then Prabhupada says that similarly, the devotees who are connected with Krishna, they also acquired this quality of Krishna of certainty. So once a person, he asked Prabhupada that you're a Swamiji, so you know everything. And Prabhupada says, Krishna knows everything. And yes, so I'm connected to him, I know everything. And he asks him, how many windows are there in the Empire State Building? And at another time, somebody asked him that how many fishes are there in the Pacific and in the Pacific Ocean? And Prabhupada answered that how is that going to help you when you're dying? Knowing how many windows are there or how many fishes are there, how will that help you in the real problems of life? Now, as devotees, we might say that there are so many things about Krishna that we don't understand. And that's why we put it all in the categories of achintya. But achintya is inconceivability. There's a difference between uncertainty and inconceivability. Uncertainty means that there is no certain answer to the question. Inconceivability means that there is an answer to the question, but we cannot conceive it. Which is why, as devotees make more advancement, the what is inconceivable, that reduces. Because Krishna from within is now giving intelligence. So from within, Krishna gives the intelligence to reduce the scope of inconceivability. But it is not uncertainty. If it was uncertainty, it would always remain uncertainty, because uncertainty is a principle in itself, which says that under no situation there is a deterministic path. And the whole theory of evolution is based on uncertainty. That under no conditions, under no situation, is it going to follow a deterministic path. But inconceivability means that now I don't understand it. Maybe never I will understand some things. But does not mean that there is no definitive answer to it. Okay. Two more things. Then Krishna is described as Purusha Purana. So Purusha Puranaya is Krishna as the original person, as the Adi Purush. Purush also means enjoyer, also as the original enjoyer. And then finally, Krishna as the origin of Sankhya Yoga. So the Sankhya Yoga system was propounded by the incarnation of Krishna known as Kapila, son of Devahuti. And later on, Dattatreya, who was the son of sage Atri and Ansuya, and with another incarnation of Lord Vishnu, he also explained the Sankhya Yoga. So this Krishna is the origin of the Sankhya Yoga system. So in using big strokes. So this is not exhaustive. But using big strokes, Lord Shiva is painting the picture of Krishna being the source and the cause of everything. Right? That he is the cause of empowerment of the Devas to give benediction. He is Manu. Manu is the progenitor in the universe. He is the mantra that gives deliverance. He is the cause of all causes, the definitive cause of all causes. He is the source of all bona fide religious principles. He has unlimited intelligence and understanding. He is the most ancient person, and he is the giver of the science of analyzing matter and spirit. Okay, we'll do one more verse and then we'll pause for discussion. Shakti Traya Sametaya Midushe Ahankratatmane Chetaku Tirupaya Namo Vacho Vibhute. My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and the result of sense activities, karma. Therefore, you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. You are also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and the activities of the Vedic injunctions. So, Lord Shiva is concluding his prayers by essentially rendering a prayer to himself. Now, this prayer is also meant for others to render. So, by example, Lord Shiva is saying, so he's essentially praying to the deity for Ahankar. So, in verse 35, he had prayed to Sankarshan, the Chaturvyuha, as the master of false ego. Now he prays to Rudra himself as the presiding deity of false ego. Right? And as I said, he is showing us to offer prayers. So Lord Shiva, he is addressed as Midhushe over here. He's prayed as the reservoir of three kinds of energies: the Adideva, Adhyatma, and Adi Bhuta. So Adideva are essentially the devas, the Adhyatma are the senses, and the Adibhuta are the elements. So they call the Shakti Traya Sameta, the Karta, Karma, and Karan. Then he prays to Rudra as the source of egotism. So Midushe Ahamkrata Mani. Then Lord Shiva as the forms of knowledge sense and action senses. So Chetakuti Rupaya. Rupaya means form, Chetakuti. So knowledge and action senses. And as Vacha Vibhutiya, as the revealer of the Vedas. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says the prayer is, may the Lord's mercy purify false egotism so that real egotism can be awakened. Aham Brahmasmi, the spirit soul performing devotional activities. So the process of purifying the false egotism is to engage both in mind and in action in devotional service of the Lord according to the directions of the Vedas. So Chitta means knowledge, Akuti means action. So without knowledge, one cannot act. And the real source of knowledge is, as was determined earlier, is Vacha. It's the sound vibration given by the Vedas. So Vacha Vibhutaya. That by the spoken sound of the Vedas, Cheta, knowledge comes, and by proper knowledge, Akuti, action comes. By this proper action, one is engaged in the process of bhakti. And when one is engaged in the process of bhakti, one migrates from the position of false egotism to true egotism. True egotism is that Jivere Sarupa Krishna Nityadas. False egotism is Aham Bhogi, Aham Param, that I am the enjoyer, I am Aham Karta, I am the doer. Prabhupada says that, of course, Lord Rudra is always spiritually awake, but for our benefit, he is praying in this way. For the impersonalist, pure egotism is Aham Brahmasmi. I am not this body, I am spirit, soul. But in its actual position, Aham Brahmasmi means that as a spirit soul, I should perform devotional activities. That is the real nature of the term Aham Brahmasmi. So Prabhupada makes this point that one should not think that if Lord Shiva is making these prayers, that means he needs these benedictions, that he is under the influence of false ego and his mind is conditioned. He's doing it. He's just like a father will crawl to show the small child how to crawl. Doesn't mean that the father doesn't know how to walk. He knows how to walk, but he's crawling just to show the son, because that's what the son can do. That's what Lord Shiva is doing. Okay, so let me pause over here. I spoke for a long time, but I did not want to interrupt the flow of the verses. So we can pause here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the class. I felt today's class a little bit dense. I have few questions, Prabhuji. First one is like when Lord Shiva is praying to the demigods, like Lord Shiva is definitely a superior individual, even in terms of as a devotee, or by all means, he is superior to the demigods. So when he is praying, we can understand that as a devotee and as an exalted personality is humble enough to extend his prayers through the demigods to the Lord. But in a way, it appears that he is praying to the demigods to give him that strength so that he can approach Lord. So, what is the mood of the demigods in accepting? Because I was asking this question in a mood that sometimes when a superior devotee, uh, you know, says something in a prayerful mood to an inferior devotee, like uh, it's hard for us to accept. Sometimes we do see a devotee say, "How are you, Prabhuji?" or something. We ask, then by your blessings, I am fine. By no means that we know that we have nothing to offer. So we instantly kind of not accept those so what is the mood of the demigods? Is that something mentioned, or can you please shed some light how they accepted the prayers of Lord Shiva, if they accepted it? They should be, I think.
So I think the primary consideration in this is to understand that Lord Shiva is showing the Prachetas how to pray. Right. So that's where Prabhupada makes this point, that you should not think that Lord Shiva is spiritually unenlightened. Like when he's asking for spiritual enlightenment, he's not. His prayers are instruction to the Prachetas, instruction to us, and we, from all perspectives, are not as advanced as the Devas. Right? That's one aspect. The second is, how do the Devas accept the prayers even from advanced devotees? Prabhupada gives the example that the gopis worship Katyani, right? There's no devotees who are more advanced than the gopis, right? But what does Katyani Devi do? Right? She says that I'm benedicting you, that you will be united with Krishna very, very soon. Right? Similarly, there's another time when Durvasa Rishi, he gives benedictions to Srimati Radharani. There's a big difference in the position of Durvasa Muni and Srimati Radharani, but yet he gives benedictions there. They're doing it as a mode of service to the advanced devotee, right? So that is Katyani Devi's service. So one should not think that Katyani Devi is only there to, or Durga Devi is there to drive people away. In her form as Yogamaya, she is there to unite people with them. So in the mode of service, she is given. Similar question was asked when there was a discussion of in the life of Tulsi Devi. And we see Tulsi Devi is performing severe austerities and Brahma is coming and giving her benedictions. Right? And somebody is saying that there's a big difference in the position of Tulsi Devi and Brahma. And then why is Brahma giving her benedictions? But then what's the benediction Brahma is giving? That you will be united to your eternal husband. Right? So, so when devotees of that level are praying, then everybody, then they're doing it in the mode of service. Another time, a similar point was made that when any jiva begins to engage in the process of bhakti, all the forces in the universe, they unite to assist that jiva. Right? So when you're talking about the forces in the universe, you're talking about the demigods. Right? They are the forces in the universe. They all unite to assist that jiva. So natural for the jiva to feel grateful for that. Not at the demand that I'm a devotee, now you should assist me, but to feel grateful that they're also advanced devotees themselves. And as the Vaishnava Sadachar, just like you would help another devotee who's starting out, saying that this is how you can chant, can read the Bhagavad Gita, etc. So in the mood of service to Krishna and Vaishnava. Similarly, the advanced devotees also, the demigods, similarly, they also render service.
Oh, you clarified so wonderfully, Prabhuji. Like the whole mood is so clear now. Thank you so much. A couple of other questions, Prabhuji. If you would like to, or if you want me to wait, I can wait also because other devotees are there.
Okay, let's see if somebody else has any questions.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, not really a question. It's about the chances. Everything happened by chance. It's as if now there is no more chance because we don't see any. For example, the theory of evolution. There is no more chance. We don't see any like monkeys become people in front of us. We don't see any new aquatic species that is crawling on the earth, becoming another species, as if everything had been frozen. It doesn't hold the theory of chances. I just want to say that.
I agree with you, but for some reason it is accepted with so much of certainty. It is kind of an oxymoron that this whole theory of probability, that it's stated very, very authoritatively that by a random combination and recombination, and after sufficient amount of iterations, life emerged. Right? It's taught in schools. It's stated as a principle. They have never been able to replicate it. Right? If it is the law of probability, then there was the scientist who had established what he thought was the condition of the universe, whatever, billions of years ago when it was formed, or the condition of Earth actually when it was formed, the proportion of the gases, the temperature and all that. So he created a microcosm, like a small test area. And then it's like you fast forward it, and then he replayed the whole thing at a very high speed. And then it ran for several years. So the idea was that he's condensing billions of years in a matter of days and months. But then at the end of it, still there was no life in that thing that he had created. All that he got was that there were some combination of carbon and hydrogen for hydrocarbons, and some hydrocarbons had combined to form longer chains that look like proteins, right? So I declared it a success, that the protein is the building blocks for life. So if I could have run it for another 1,000 years or whatever, then life would have come. But it's at the end of the day, it's basically certainty about uncertainty. That's what it is.
Yeah. So the other thing probably is, and some physicists, they will come with a very abstract or very difficult theory that we as laymen cannot understand. And they will put it like in such a way that we look like fool in front of them. and then, we fool, we can't understand because between themselves, they're talking like very, very great theory. That means we can't understand, and then we will never understand, but they think they know what they're talking about. And then they're getting funded millions and billions of dollars for research. And because other fools think that they are smart.
I was once attending a lecture by Radhikaraman Prabhu, who was professor of theology, and he was saying in academics, one of the first things is whatever you state it with authority. Whether you know it or not doesn't matter, but you have to state it with authority. That's one of the first trainings that they get when they become like professional academicians. So you cannot admit, even if you admit that there is uncertainty about it, You have to admit it in a way that it supports your premise.
Yeah, this is why it's called hypothesis, Prabhu. When we do a research paper, you have some hypothesis that you have to confirm. But what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis itself in its own word, meaning something that you're not sure about.
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, Ravi Prabhu, nobody else has question. Maybe can ask one more question and then we can go back to our discussion.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, while explaining, difference between the uncertainty and inconceivability, you mentioned that inconceivability means there is a clear answer, but we have a problem in conceiving that. Does that mean like if some subject matter is inconceivable, is that meaning is it inconceivable for everyone, or it is only I am not able to conceive it, but somebody else is able to conceive? Because why I'm asking this question is, if an answer is something that nobody is able to conceive it or understand it, then it is not really in answering the question. So
yeah, I think the broad answer to that, Prabhu, would be it depends on what the question is. Right? There are some questions that are conceivable depending on the level of empowerment. Right? So, how is it that the yogis are able to perform all these siddhis? Because they're able to conceive the way that material nature is working. It's there for us also, but they're able to conceive it, so they're able to perform all this siddhis, right? So what is inconceivable to us is conceivable to them, right? And the Jiva Goswami, when he talks about the Achintya Bheda Tattva, the oneness and difference, he's talking about the more general sense of inconceivability. Now, it's obvious that you cannot say that it is inconceivable to everyone, because it has to be conceivable to Krishna. Otherwise, Krishna's all-knowing cannot be applied anymore. If it is conceivable to Krishna, it is conceivable to those who are his pure devotees. Right. So the conceivability is now related to how much are you empowered by Krishna. For us, our past and future is inconceivable, but for personalities like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, they're able to see the past and the future not only of themselves but for everyone. Right? So it is inconceivable for us; it is conceivable to them. Right? So all depends on how much is one empowered by Krishna to conceive. Again, I think the question is that why does Jiva Goswami categorically say that it is achintya? He says it as an absolute tag. That why is the relationship with Krishna achintya? It is achintya because unless one is empowered by Krishna, it will always be achintya. That's how it is considered to be achintya.
Yes, Prabhuji. Very clear, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll move on to verse 44. Darshanam no didrikshunam dehi bhagavatarchitam rupam priyatamam swanam sarvendriya gunanajam. My dear Lord, I wish to see you exactly in that form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is specially liked by the devotees. please be merciful upon me and show me that form. For only that form, worshipped by the devotees, can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. So the previous verse was the last in which Lord Shiva was praying to the Devas and to the Lord also for benedicting him to approach the Lord, render prayers. Now he is beginning to render prayers. So from verse 44 to 52, Lord Shiva is praying about seeing and serving the Lord's form. Right? So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Lord Shiva says to Krishna that now I want to see your form. And Krishna says, I have so many forms. Which form of mine should I show you? And so he says that, Lord Shiva says that beautiful form, Rupam, worshipped by your devotees, Bhagavad Arshitam. So the word Rupam Priyatamam Swanam is indicating that Lord Shiva wants to see the form that is dear to the devotees. So what is he excluding? He does not want to see the form of the Lord that is dear to the materialists. They see the Lord as an order supplier. They'll see the Lord as demigod, or they'll see the Lord as an idol that is supplying them their needs. So he doesn't want to see that form. He does not want to see the Lord in the form that the Jnanis see, which is the impersonal Brahman. He does not want to see the Lord which the yogis see, which is as the Paramatma. Right? So this is essentially a more eloquent way of saying that Lord Shiva wants to see the personal form of the Lord. And we see the humility of Lord Shiva, that he's taking shelter of the devotees. Right? He's like, show me that form that the devotees like to see. So what is he doing? He's taking shelter of the devotees. He's not jumping over their heads. He's not saying, show me your personal form. And he's saying, show me the form that your devotees like to see. Prabhupada said that others, like the Mayavadis or the Buddhists, they may worship a certain form, but aspire for no form. Right? So they worship the form as a means to an end. That many Mayavadis engage in deity worship. Some of the biggest temples in India were established by Shankaracharya. The worship over there, most of the priests, and so one of the temples where the worship cannot be more personal is the temple of Lord Jagannath. And most of the priests over there, they are Shankarites. They're follower of Sripad Shankaracharya, because he established the worship over there. So, but they worship a form, but they say that when I get perfect, then I don't worship a form. So the word Swanam is significant because only the devotees are very, very dear to the personality of God. So this excludes the Brahman, because Brahman is neutral. So what is the glory of this personal form? That it is Sarvendriya Gunan Janam. That it can satisfy all the propensities of the senses, and it can please all the senses. It is attractive to all the senses. Prabhupada says in the Shruti or Veda Mantra, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Sarva Kama, Sarva Gandha, Sarva Rasa. Or in other words, he is Rasovaisa, the source of all relishable relationships, rasas. Another understanding of this praise of the Lord Shiva is that this form that he is aspiring to take darshan of is Guna Anjam. Guna Anjam. So Guna means beneficial and Anjam means ornament. So it should be Guna Anjam for all the senses, so that the senses give up the blindness of experiencing material enjoyment and are able to experience the Lord by taking on this vision. So Prabhupada says, the Shruti says, Chakshusha Chakshu, that the Lord is the eye of the eye. And then in Narad Pancharatra it says, Sarvapadi Vinirmukta Tatvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uttamam. That when one serves the Lord of the senses with the senses, then Sarvapadi Vinirmukta, and one gives up all, or one has to give up all upadhis, all material designation, and then Tatvena Nirmalam, and then become purified. Same point is made by Brahma and Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Chariti Bhakti Vilochanena, Santa Sadeva Hideshu Vilokayanti, Yamasham Sundaram Achintaya Gunaswarupam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. So Prabhupada in the purport writes that the conclusion is that Lord Shiva wants to see him in complete perfection and not in the impersonalist or voidist way. Although the Lord is one in his various forms, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim, still his form as a young enjoyer of the gopis and companion of cowherd boys, Kishore Murti, is the most perfect form. Thus Vaishnavas accept the form of the Lord in his Vrindavan pastimes as the chief form. And Prabhupada says that that is the form that Lord Shiva is praying that be revealed to him by taking shelter of the devotees. Okay. So the next verse is actually a very, very long purport, next two verses. So we do not have the time to go there. So we'll stop here. And just a couple of minutes, if anybody has any concluding thoughts, we can speak about it for a few minutes. Okay. If not, then we can end.
Just probably one thing. I see that text 44 is a very beautiful prayers from Lord Shiva. Beautiful.
It is. It is. Yeah. Okay. So we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nithai Gaur Premanand. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Ramkishore Prabhu.